All right, everybody. Glad to have you with us. Super excited to be with you guys today. And we're happy that we're able to have this time together to talk about this all important topic, the leadership style of a nonprofit entrepreneur. I want to share a couple of things with you that will help us kind of move this needle forward. With that being said, let's go ahead and cue the intro, and then we'll be right back after this. Hey everybody, this is Dr. William Clark, your host of the Dr. William Clark podcast. Glad to be with you all today. Wanted to welcome you into the podcast and just tell you thank you. Thank you for logging on, subscribing, watching, clicking, liking, sharing this podcast and the previous podcast episodes. It's our desire to provide great content for you, particularly if you are looking for content around nonprofit strategy, nonprofit leadership, and nonprofit fundraising. As you engage in this particular podcast, I'm going to ask that you take a moment to not only take notes as we get started, but also take a moment to share this particular podcast episode with someone in your life who you believe can benefit from this. This can be a colleague, this can be a friend, this can be a partner, it can be a stakeholder, anyone you think can benefit from good content around nonprofit stuff. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get into our show, and I'll see you guys on the other side. All right, folks, this is Dr. Clark. I want to welcome you back into the episode, to the show today. I want to talk a little bit about the leadership style of a nonprofit entrepreneur. I want to kind of dig into this a little bit and to help frame out for some of you what it's like, what it's going to be like to lead your teams and to be a part of this journey of building your nonprofit organization. Now, as we set the stage for this, I do want to be clear that a lot of what we're going to share is not isolated to and is not just for individuals who are launching a nonprofit from the ground up. This is for the person, even if you're working in an established nonprofit organization and you have a leadership role, or you aspire to a leadership role, or you're serving in any capacity, even the front line, and you just want to do things different, and you have an entrepreneurial spirit and an entrepreneurial attitude, this stuff is going to be for you. So we have quite a few things we want to get through as we talk about this idea of the leadership style of a nonprofit entrepreneur. So let's jump into it here. There are three things I want to share with you about the leadership style of a nonprofit entrepreneur, but let me kind of set the stage a little bit. We did say that this is for the individual who views themselves as an entrepreneur within any context of the nonprofit in and of itself. This is a conversation that's beyond just saying, I'm going out, starting my own nonprofit organization. I'm going to build my own board, build my own community, build my own group of stakeholders, build my own portfolio of folks who are going to support us and support this work. We're going to go and start our own stuff. So this is beyond that type of decision, even though that scenario clearly falls within the bounds of that. But what we're talking about today is taking that next step of saying, even if I'm a part of an established nonprofit, whether I'm taking over a nonprofit or I'm joining a nonprofit or I'm serving in a nonprofit, I have an entrepreneurial attitude, an entrepreneurial bend to my work. I am willing to take calculated risks to advance the cause of the work, right? To advance the experience of our customers, to help our customers experience something that's better and different and more progressive than what they've had in the past, right? When you have that particular view of your work and you're willing to improve on the work by taking risks, stepping outside of the box, right? Within reason, following policy and structure, but stepping outside of the box and doing things just a bit different so that you can get a different result that better serves the community, then this conversation is for you. So when we talk about the nonprofit entrepreneur and we talk about his or her leadership style and what this person is posturing, what they're presenting to their community, to their customer, well, what should this person do? How should they behave? How should they think? Well, there are a number of things that we could talk about, but I just want to share three things with you to kind of move the needle forward when it comes to the leadership style of a nonprofit entrepreneur. Number one, you as a leader have to understand you're called to envision it, whatever it is. We got three it's now. The first it is to envision it. As the leader, you are on the hook for a vision. Above all else, you're on the hook for a vision. You're on the hook for providing value. You're on the hook for providing direction to a bunch of people who are saying, I want to support this work. I want to be a part of this work. The question that they're going to be asking you is, and this is where you add value as a leader, where are we going? What direction are we going into, and why? Right? I'm here to serve the community. I'm here to serve our customers. I'm here to figure out how I as an individual can add value through my work. But where are we going? What's the vision? And so it's easy to say the CEO should have a vision because that's their job, right? It's easy to say the board chair should have a vision because that's their job, right? It's easy to say the C-suite folks should have a vision. The middle management should have a vision. But even for the frontline team members that we have, what's your vision for the work? Now, programmatically, we have some goals that we have to meet. We have some obligations we have to fulfill with our funder. We have some standards we have to uphold due to policy and everything associated with that. But there is a valid question on the floor. What do you envision? Let me give an example. There was a time years ago I was working in public housing, and I started my time out there in the intake office or the admissions office. And there were policies in place to govern how we interacted with the client and how we collected information and how we moved the client through their life cycle of being admitted and enrolled in public housing. And then once they got through the application process, we did the assessment, the evaluation, and determined if someone was eligible. And then we kind of go through the lease signing process, and then they were moved into housing. So that was already established, right? That's a federal program. Those guidelines are established by federal policy, et cetera. And every subsequent housing authority that decides to take federal money to operate said program, they agree to follow these terms. They agree to follow these standards that have been set by the federal government. So every employee, including me, as a lowly administration or admin admissions specialist, we were subject to that same vision. So off the top, that was the standard that I had to abide by. So as it relates to this conversation, when I know that's the standard overall, there are policies that I have to follow to accomplish that particular goal, there is still a valid question on the floor. What was my vision and what mattered to me? Well, I got to tell you, as I spent time in the admissions office and I started to get a feel for how things flowed and how things worked, there were a couple of things I noticed that could have been improved upon without breaking policy and without stepping outside of the rules of federal policy and federal guidelines. I also saw things that I could do that didn't break organizational company policy and rules, right? One of them was figuring out how to get through the admissions, the intake process in a much more efficient and faster way without leaving behind quality. Because the quality of our data mattered a lot. It had an impact on our ability to continuously receive funding. Now, I didn't know this at the time. I'm just an admissions person. But as I thought about what I wanted to do, as I thought about my job and that particular nonprofit, I wanted to figure out how to be more efficient, how to be faster, how to be equally effective and have higher, if not equal or higher quality, all while creating a better customer experience. So my vision was, how do I do this faster, higher quality, equal or higher quality, and better customer experience? So I started to do things that made that happen, whether I made the admissions process a little bit easier, I navigated the intake process with the customer by giving a group introduction that explained all the directions, what to do, how to do, as opposed to just letting people do it on their own. I highlighted things that people needed to focus their attention on. And then when we did the assessment, we had a review process that allowed us to hit all the major points while not leaving behind asking all the pertinent questions and getting all the pertinent answers we needed. So for the nonprofit entrepreneur, again, from the top to the bottom of the organization, what's your vision? What do you want to accomplish? What is it that you want to see happen? If not for the organization, but for your work every day. Every day that you walk into the office to serve your community, what is it that you envision to happen every day? Here's the second thing, the leadership style of a nonprofit entrepreneur. Second thing to consider, whatever you envision, model it. Model it for yourself, number one. Model it for team members around you, whether you have people reporting to you or not. Model it for stakeholders who are looking at you and trying to figure out what are you trying to do and what outcomes we're going to get from this. Model it. Be consistent whether people agree with it or not. Be consistent whether people get on board with it or not. Be consistent whether the customer appreciates this or not. Now, obviously, this is based upon you doing things that are truly value add to the work and to the business. But when I talk about doing this, whether people appreciate it or not, whether people are on board or not, what I'm getting at is whether you get the cosign of people, the accolades of people, the praise of people, your customer, your stakeholders, board members, and others that you think you need the praise of, whether you get that or not, an entrepreneur says we have a goal to accomplish, and whether the marketplace or our competitors or other folks give us praise or not, if we know we're doing the right thing and there's evidence of it and it's producing quality, consistent results every time we provide work and services to our customer, then we know we're on the right track. That is the ultimate key indicator of success. That is the ultimate sign to us that says we're moving in the right direction, when we know that our customer is getting the same consistent quality results and we're getting better at delivering on those results. So when you have a vision for what you're trying to accomplish, go ahead and start to model it. Because when you start to share that vision and you start to communicate that vision, the next thing that's going to happen almost immediately is that people are going to look at your behavior and say, all right, great. Now, what are you doing to make that happen? What are you doing to make that a reality? What are you doing to show that this is important to you just as much as you say it is? Because your words, they're cheap. But your actions really is where people look to see if you are serious about this work. And then lastly, we talked about envision it. We talked about modeling it. And then lastly, you want to measure it. How do you measure success? How do you measure your style? How do you measure output and results? How do you measure the success of your entrepreneurial attitude? You got to measure it. So when we talked about this housing example, housing admissions, etc., what we said was we wanted to make sure we were being more efficient. We wanted to be more efficient. We wanted to improve the client experience, and we wanted to have equal or greater quality to our work, regardless of how much time we spent on this particular policy or this particular process. And so we measure success by the speed with which we were able to produce this particular outcome. We then measured our success again with our auditor, who told us whether or not we were collecting 100% of the documents, collecting all the pertinent information that determined eligibility and admissions to our program, and whether or not all the documents were appropriate, right? Signed, current, etc. And then the last measurement was, did we get our customer in and out, and were they satisfied with the experience, or were they just frustrated? If we didn't receive high marks across the board, across those three key indicators of success, then we knew that we weren't moving in the right direction. And this is just us as regular staff people thinking about how we can do a better job on the front line. And so for those of you who are leading organizations, those who are in middle management, for those who are looking to launch your own nonprofit, this same mentality exists. You're trying to figure out how can our entire group, how can our entire team establish the right leadership style that makes the most sense for our organization, and how can we do so that allows us to be impactful, results-driven entrepreneurs? So those 3 points again, you got to envision it, you got to model it, and you got to measure it. It's key. With that being said, folks, we hope that this was helpful. And replay this entire podcast and try to figure out where you need to establish strong principles in your leadership. And what do you need to do to establish these principles to make you a better nonprofit entrepreneur? This is Dr. Clark for the Dr. William Clark podcast. We'll see you guys in the next episode. All right, everybody, this is Dr. William Clark again. Thanks for hanging out with us with this during this particular podcast, and I hope that you got some value out of this particular podcast. Now, I want to make sure that we also close this podcast with some additional value. Now, we've created the Nonprofit Fundraising Masterclass. This particular masterclass was designed by nonprofit leaders for nonprofit leaders to help you simplify your fundraising approaches without chasing funders. Now, if this is something that you want to engage in and utilize for your nonprofit organization, if you have been thinking about how to fundraise for your organization, you just don't know how to do it, if you're transitioning from one phase of fundraising to the next, or you're just trying to improve the fundraising capacity of your organization, then this particular masterclass may be the right fit for you. So if you want to submit your application and join our next cohort, then go to nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. Again, that's nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. For all others who want to just get on my calendar and chat a little bit about your nonprofit organization, we offer free consultations. So you can simply go to DrWilliamPClark.com to schedule your free consultation. Again, that's DrWilliamPClark.com for your free consultation. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this particular episode, and we'll see you guys next time. See you, everybody.